If you've lived as long as Goldie Hawn and spent decades in the spotlight, it is almost impossible not to butt heads with a couple of people along the way. And Goldie had her fair share of clashes and misunderstandings with others. But most of those tensions faded with time. Fences were mended, apologies were made, and she moved on. But not with this one person. This was the one name she could not forgive. The one situation she never allowed to fade. The one grudge that stayed fresh, no matter how many years passed. So who did Goldie Hawn hate more than anyone else? And what exactly did this person do to end up on her permanent bad side? Let's get into the details. From ballet floors to big dreams. Goldie Hawn didn't just appear out of nowhere with that sunshine smile and effortless charm. Her story began in Washington, D.C., in a home where art, culture, and complexity lived under the same roof. Her mother, Laura, ran a jewelry shop and a dance school, always moving, always building something. Her father, Edward Rutledge Hawn, was a musician and conductor with a lineage that traced straight back to Edward Rutledge, the youngest man to sign the Declaration of Independence. Goldie wasn't just born into performance. She was born into history. She carried her mother's aunt's name, a quiet family tribute, but her childhood wasn't without shadows. She had a sister, Patty, who later carved out her own path as an entertainment publicist. But there had once been another child, Edward Jr. He died before Patty was even conceived. The girls grew up never knowing about him, never feeling that missing space in the family until they were much older, long after their lives had already taken shape. Her father came from German and English roots and practiced the Presbyterian faith, while her mother was Jewish, the daughter of Hungarian Jewish immigrants. But inside the Hawn home, Goldie was raised Jewish, and that identity shaped her early world in Tacoma Park, Maryland, the kind of town where kids biked through tree-lined streets and dreams were allowed to stretch a little wider. She went to Montgomery Blair High School in Silver Spring, carrying that mix of discipline, creativity, and inherited ambition wherever she went. And Goldie didn't wait long to start moving. She was barely 3 when she began ballet and tap, already learning how to tell stories with her body long before she could tell them with her voice. By 1955, she was dancing in the corps de ballet for the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo's production of The Nutcracker. While other kids her age were still figuring out hopscotch, Goldie was stepping onto a stage that hummed with lights and possibility. Her first real taste of acting came in 1964, when she played Juliet at the Virginia Shakespeare Festival. It wasn't the bubbly, comedic Goldie the world would later adore. This was a girl stepping into tragedy, into language that felt bigger than life, into a role that demanded emotion she was still learning to articulate. That same year, she made a choice that would set her future on a sharper, riskier path. She dropped out of American University, where she'd been majoring in drama, and did something bold. She opened and taught at her own ballet school. It was a move that sounded reckless to anyone looking in from the outside, but Goldie always knew how to trust her own instincts. Soon enough, she was pulled back to the stage. She made her professional dancing debut in a production of Can-Can at the Texas Pavilion of the New York World's Fair, a setting buzzing with ambition, innovation, and people who were hungry for something new. A year later, she went full throttle into professional dancing. She performed as a go-go dancer in New York City and then at the Peppermint Box in New Jersey, stepping into the kind of smoky electric nightlife that shapes you whether you're ready or not. This was Goldie before the fame, before the movies, before the world decided she was America's golden girl, a young woman chasing momentum, building herself one performance at a time, and moving with a confidence that hinted she knew exactly where she was headed, even if no one else did. The Hollywood golden girl who broke every rule and still won. Goldie Hawn never eased her way into Hollywood. She burst in like someone who already knew the room was waiting for her. When she left for California in the late 60s to dance in a stage show at Melodyland Theater, She wasn't thinking about fame or awards or becoming the most recognizable smile of an entire generation. She just wanted to dance, perform, and keep chasing that thrill she'd felt as a kid on stage. But that decision, that simple move across the country, became the first domino in a career that would flip Hollywood on its head. Her first acting job came almost by accident. Good Morning World cast her as the bubbly, ditzy girlfriend of a radio DJ, a stereotype on paper. But Goldie had this uncanny ability to make even the lightest role feel alive. Even when the show fizzled out, she didn't. Casting agents noticed the way she lit up the screen and how her timing landed perfectly, even when she was pretending not to know anything. Hollywood always notices talent, but they're obsessed with magic, and Goldie had that in her pocket from day one. But everything changed when she walked onto the set of Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. That show didn't just make her famous, it turned her into a cultural phenomenon. Goldie arrived with her bikini tops, painted body, big giggles, and this electric charm that felt impossible to ignore. She'd giggle halfway through a joke, acting like she didn't know what she was doing, and then snap into a flawless punchline a second later. It was her mix of innocence and sharpness that made America lean closer. She wasn't trying to be the moment, she became it. Producers saw it, directors saw it, audiences felt it. And just like that, Hollywood opened the gate. Her very first major role in Cactus Flower launched her into a level of stardom most actors spend a lifetime chasing. She walked into that film as the funny girl from TV and walked out with an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. One movie, one Oscar. It wasn't luck, it was arrival. From that point on, Goldie wasn't just working, she was defining an era. The 70s turned her into something bigger than a movie star. She became the heartbeat of Hollywood comedies. Films like There's a Girl in My Soup, Dollars, and Butterflies Are Free showed her range. She could be funny, heartfelt, dramatic, and vulnerable. She could carry a movie on her shoulders without breaking a sweat. But she didn't stop at comedy. She stepped into Steven Spielberg's earlier work with the Sugarland Express, proving she could shift gears and play a dramatic lead just as convincingly. By then, the industry knew Goldie Hawn didn't belong in one box. She didn't even respect boxes. She broke them down, danced on them, and kept moving. And then came Shampoo, Foul Play, and a string of films where her charm became the selling point. Audiences didn't just like watching Goldie, they trusted her. She made people laugh in a way that felt easy and effortless, even when the work behind the scenes was anything but. But the moment that changed everything again was Private Benjamin. Goldie didn't just star in it, she co-produced it. That was unheard of for a woman in Hollywood at that time. She heard the pitch, lit up inside, and decided she wasn't just going to act out the story, she was going to own it. The movie exploded, earned her a second Academy Award nomination, and turned her into something Hollywood wasn't ready for. A woman who could lead, mold, and build her own films without asking anyone's permission. From there, her career became a mix of bold choices and playful risk-taking. She recorded a country album with Dolly Parton and Buck Owens. She hosted TV specials with George Burns and the Harlem Globetrotters. She teamed up with legends like Liza Minnelli, Mel Gibson, Steve Martin, and Warren Beatty. And when she teamed up with Kurt Russell for Overboard, the movies didn't just get a hit, the public got one of Hollywood's most enduring love stories. But even stars know when to pause. Goldie stepped away for years to care for her mother, who passed in 1994. It was a quiet, personal sacrifice that didn't make headlines but shaped her deeply. And when she returned, she came back swinging. The First Wives Club became an instant classic. Everyone Says I Love You highlighted her as a musical force again. The late 90s and early 2000s gave her hits, misses, and cult favorites. But Goldie never blended into the background. She was always the bright spot, the pulse of the scene. And then, just when people thought she'd retired for good, she reappeared in Snatched, and later in The Christmas Chronicles as Mrs. Claus, warm, witty, and still effortlessly magnetic. Goldie Hawn didn't just have a long career, she had a loud one, a fearless one, a career built on instinct, timing, grit, and that signature glow that made people stop whatever they were doing just to watch her. She didn't follow Hollywood's rules, she rewrote them with a giggle. The Hollywood predator who tried to break Goldie Hawn and the revenge success gave her. Goldie Hawn's rise to fame looked bright and successful from the outside, but behind that glow was a moment that nearly crushed her before Hollywood even learnt her name. Long before the Oscars, the applause, and the sitcoms that turned her into a national sweetheart, she was just a 19-year-old dancer hustling through New York, taking whatever work she could find, hoping one lucky break would change everything. That break seemed to appear the day a casting agent stopped her on the street and pointed her toward a meeting with a big-name cartoonist. She thought she was stepping into an audition. Instead, she walked straight into the darker side of the industry. The kind of encounter young women whispered about in dressing rooms. The kind that came with locked doors and bad instincts. The moment she walked into his apartment, she knew something felt off. He didn't act like a man meeting talent. He disappeared and came back in a robe, as if professionalism was optional, and power was a costume he could put on whenever he wanted. She tried to stay focused, clinging to the tiny hope that maybe she had read the situation wrong, and for a moment, he made it easy to believe that. He gave her feedback that sounded real, the kind that makes a young actress sit up straighter and think she might actually be learning something. But then the mask slipped. His interest wasn't in her acting. It was in her youth, her vulnerability, and her silence. The room shifted from opportunity to danger in seconds. He leaned in, pushed boundaries, expected compliance, and treated her talent like it was simply the bait to get her through the door. When she stood her ground and refused to play along, the charm evaporated. What replaced it was rage, the kind meant to break a girl who didn't know how much power she actually had. He told her she'd never succeed, that she should give up now, that the dream she carried wasn't worth fighting for. And just to twist the knife, he tossed her cab fare like she was an inconvenience he wanted erased. She walked out, shaking, broke, and furious, forced to return to the World's Fair, where she had been dancing just to survive. But here's the part that gives her story its punch. She didn't fold. She kept dancing. She kept showing up. She kept believing that the world would one day see what he tried to diminish. And a few years later, the world did. Laugh-In made her a household name. Cactus Flower made her an Oscar winner. Audiences loved the very thing that man tried to make her ashamed of. Her spark, her spirit, her light. And when she later sent him a note, it wasn't written out of spite. It was written with clarity. He didn't get to write her story. He didn't get the final say. Her success wasn't his to approve, and his rejection didn't define her. If anything, it pushed her toward the life she was meant to have. In the end, Goldie Hawn's career wasn't built on luck. It was built on the moment she refused to trade her dignity for a chance. That decision, made in a stranger's apartment when she was 19, became the foundation of the woman the world would eventually fall in love with. Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. The 40-year Hollywood love story you didn't know about. Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell are Hollywood royalty, the kind of couple whose story seems plucked from a movie. Yet it is profoundly real, messy, and enduring. For over 40 years, they have been inseparable, a beacon of stability in a world where relationships often implode under the glare of fame. But the road to their legendary partnership wasn't straightforward, and it took a winding journey through first loves, heartbreaks, and chance encounters before they finally found each other. Before Kurt Russell entered the picture, Goldie's love life was already a headline in the making. Her very first serious romance came with Gus Triconis, a dancer, actor, and director whose own star was beginning to rise in Hollywood. Their paths crossed in 1966, a few years before Goldie became a household name on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, and their connection was immediate. They even shared the same birthday, November 21st, which seemed almost poetic in hindsight. Gus was no stranger to the spotlight. He had danced his way into cinematic history as Indio, one of the sharks in West Side Story, the iconic 1961 adaptation of the Broadway classic. He had moved with effortless precision across the silver screen in The Unsinkable Molly Brown, performing alongside Debbie Reynolds and Grover Dale, had been part of the ensemble that danced with Elvis Presley in the 1968 comeback special that has since become one of television's most legendary moments. With a resume like that, Gus was both experienced and ambitious, a man chasing his own Hollywood dream while entwined with a young actress who was just beginning to realize hers. Their romance quickly turned serious, and by 1969, Goldie and Gus tied the knot. It was the same year Goldie's career reached an early pinnacle. She won her first, and to date only, Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her performance in Cactus Flower. At the time, the world was watching Goldie's star rise at full speed, but inside their marriage, pressures were quietly mounting. The next 4 years would test both of them. By 1973, Goldie's fame had soared to heights that Gus could not fully match, and he was pivoting toward directing, a shift that pulled them in different directions. Though they had separated, they did not rush to divorce. Bound by the sentiment that neither wanted to remarry at the time, the relationship dissolved quietly, making way for the next chapter in Goldie's life, which included her marriage to musician Bill Hudson and the births of Oliver and Kate Hudson. Meanwhile, Kurt Russell had already been etched into Goldie's memory long before the two would become a couple. They first met in 1966, when Hawn was 21 and Russell was only 16. It was a fleeting encounter, and romance wasn't on the table. He was too young, and both were careful about dating within the industry. Yet something lingered, a first impression that neither could entirely shake. The seed of a connection was planted, waiting silently for the right season to bloom. Fast forward to 1983. Goldie Hawn was at a point in her career and life where she was ready to open herself to a new love, and fate nudged Kurt Russell back into her orbit during the audition process for the film Swing Shift. This time, circumstances aligned perfectly. Now, older and wiser, they reconnected with a chemistry that had only deepened with the years. Their first date came with its own thrill, an adventure in breaking into a house Goldie was renovating, an act of spontaneity that mirrored the daring energy both brought to their lives and careers. They were not just falling in love, they were creating a story together, one built on shared laughter, risk, and a deepening trust that neither had experienced before. A crucial factor in their relationship was family. Goldie was already a mother to 2 children, and Russell had a son from a previous marriage. Watching him interact with her children revealed his natural ease and affection, the kind of presence that instantly made him more than a boyfriend. He became a partner and a figure her children could rely on. The same could be said for Goldie with Russell's son, Boston. In their blended family, love was measured not just in romance, but in the quiet moments of care, support, and patience that defined how they navigated life together. Their love didn't just survive Hollywood's pressures, it thrived. In 1986, they expanded their family with the birth of Wyatt Russell, and a year later, they collaborated on the film Overboard, a comedy that captured their undeniable on-screen chemistry. But their story was bigger than movies. They were each other's cheerleaders, walking the red carpet side by side, supporting projects, navigating setbacks, and celebrating triumphs. Their lives became entwined in every sense: partners, parents, colleagues, and best friends. As the years went on, their family life blossomed in ways that went beyond their own children. Grandchildren entered the picture, and Goldie's joy in seeing Russell step into this role was palpable. Their commitment to one another became even clearer, built not on a legal contract, but on an unwavering choice every single day to hold their relationship together, to protect it, and to honor each other's individuality. For decades, they have famously chosen not to marry, a decision rooted in experience, wisdom, and a desire to avoid the complications and heartbreak that can come with formalized unions in Hollywood. For them, love is not defined by paperwork. It is measured in care, patience, respect, and shared values that have only deepened over time. Over 40 years later, Goldie and Kurt Russell's story is less about the glitz of Hollywood and more about a rare and enduring partnership. It is about timing, about understanding that love doesn't always happen on schedule, and about building a life with someone who not only compliments you, but also challenges you, supports you, and stands beside you as an equal. They have created a legacy not just of cinema, but of commitment, demonstrating that real love is not about perfection, but about choice, resilience, and shared joy. Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell didn't just find love, they created a life together that is cinematic, intimate, and inspiring. Goldie Hawn truly hated him more than anyone. The Bill Hudson years. Goldie Hawn's life has always been a whirlwind of fame, talent, and unforgettable relationships. But few chapters were as turbulent as the years she spent with Bill Hudson. By the mid-1970s, Hawn was cementing her status as a Hollywood icon, her career skyrocketing, her star shining brighter than ever. Into this orbit entered Bill Hudson, a musician riding the high of the Hudson brothers' success, already connected to some of the biggest names in the industry and dabbling in film and TV. When they met on a first-class flight from New York to Los Angeles in 1975, the spark was instant. It was the kind of chemistry that could ignite a firestorm, and for Goldie, it did. Their relationship ignited almost immediately. From the first dinner to the first nights spent wrapped in each other's presence, the intensity was undeniable. Physical intimacy became the center of their connection, a force that both drew them together and eventually tore them apart. As their careers surged, so did their romance, moving fast, furious, and unrelenting. Within a year, they were married, with Goldie pregnant with their first child, a son whose arrival was far from easy. The birth of their son came with a terrifying complication. He suffered from meconium aspiration, a condition in which a newborn inhales contaminated amniotic fluid, leaving him in critical condition for 3 agonizing days. Goldie was gravely ill, and Bill oscillated between her bedside and the neonatal intensive care unit, the air thick with fear. The doctors weren't optimistic. For a time, hope seemed fragile. But their son survived, pulling through as a tiny miracle. That first breath of relief, the sheer intensity of the moment, forged a fleeting bond between them that hinted at love and devotion. But it wasn't enough to hold a marriage that was already quietly fracturing. 3 years later, a daughter arrived. For a brief moment, the family of 4 seemed complete. They shared smiles, milestones, and a glimpse of domestic happiness. But the foundations were already cracking. Goldie's vision of life didn't match Bill's. He longed for a traditional marriage, a conventional partnership built on fidelity and structure. Goldie wanted freedom, autonomy, and the ability to live on her own terms. The conflict was subtle at first, unspoken expectations and quiet resentments, but it grew until the marriage imploded. By 1981, the separation was inevitable. The passionate bond that had begun with undeniable heat ended in frustration, betrayal, and the slow erosion of trust. After Bill, Goldie's heart found Kurt Russell, though it wasn't immediate. She had first met Kurt in 1968 during the filming of the one and only genuine original family band, but nothing came of it. It wasn't until 1983, during the filming of Swing Shift, that romance bloomed. By then, Goldie was navigating the aftermath of her divorce and raising 2 children. Blending families would be a challenge. Kurt had a son, Boston, from a previous relationship, and Goldie's children were still processing the loss of a father's presence. For them, meeting Kurt was a revelation. He was steady, patient, and present. Over time, he became more than a partner to Goldie. He became a father figure, a constant anchor in a life that had often been unmoored. Goldie and Kurt welcomed a son, Wyatt, in 1986, cementing the family unit. They worked not just to maintain their bond, but to create a home where their children could grow secure and loved. For Goldie, it was a stark contrast to the years with Bill. Here was a love that didn't demand compromise on her values, that offered stability without suffocating her independence. Their partnership was built on choice, mutual respect, and a shared understanding of what it meant to be a family. It wasn't perfect, but it was enduring in ways that her first marriage had never been. Bill Hudson, however, remained a presence in the shadows. The children of his marriage to Goldie, Kate, and Oliver carried the weight of those early years, navigating feelings of abandonment, resentment, and confusion. Bill himself expressed a sense of betrayal, claiming that Goldie had turned the children against him. Social media brought these tensions into focus in 2015, when Oliver posted a controversial Father's Day message that reignited the old wounds. Bill saw it as a premeditated slight, a public rebuke that left him feeling excluded, frustrated, and deeply hurt. Kate followed suit, posting her own tribute to Kurt, further highlighting the distance that had grown between the family members. The fallout was intense. Bill removed reminders of his children from his home, a gesture that mirrored the estrangement between him and the kids. Yet, through it all, Kurt embraced his role as father and grandfather with quiet consistency, offering support where Bill could not. He stepped in, filling a void that had left deep scars, and his presence allowed the children to thrive, to feel loved, and to begin healing from past fractures. Over the years, the relationship between Bill and his children has slowly moved toward reconciliation. What was once icy and bitter has begun to thaw, with conversations tentative and contact gradual. Oliver and Kate speak of a warming connection, a deliberate choice to let relationships evolve naturally, without forcing them into predetermined roles or expectations. Even as Goldie and Kurt's life moved forward in stability, love, and growth, the echoes of the past remained a reminder of how intense, volatile, and transformative those early years with Bill Hudson had been. Looking back, the story is sharp, bitter, and compelling. The marriage to Bill was fire and friction, passion and heartbreak, a vivid lesson in the limits of chemistry without compatibility. Goldie emerged stronger, wiser, and ready for a love that could endure, finding it with Kurt Russell, whose steadiness and dedication offered the home, heart, and family life she had always sought. Bill Hudson remained a figure of the past, significant, complicated, and contentious, but it was Goldie's journey beyond him that defined her, allowing her to mold a life on her own terms, one rooted in love, loyalty, and lasting happiness. Do you think the relationship between Bill Hudson and Goldie Hawn was doomed from the start? Or could things have turned out differently? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.